If you don't know how or when your prep starts, this video is for you. Most of the problems that arise in prep can be easily avoided by simply getting things right at the start. So I'm going to run you through the exact 4 steps you need to go through before you even get into prep to make sure that when you do actually start, it is effective, efficient, and you're turning up the stage in condition, full, hard, peeled, and getting the placings that you want. And it all starts with step 1, understanding when your off season ends. Now, in an ideal world, this would have been decided long before you start prep. So you'll be in an off season, you'll pick your shows, and then your whole year will be mapped out as is shown on that bottom right there. So you understand when your prep ends, when you start your pre-prep phase, when prep actually starts. Now that's in an ideal world, but you may be in a position where you're prepping this year and you don't have that time, you don't have the luxury of mapping the whole year out. And if you don't, then that's fine. You just need to ask yourself the question, can I get in shape in 20 weeks? Now, a prep is typically 16 to 22 weeks long, depending on what your start position is up until that first show. So it would be a good idea to make sure that you can get in shape in 20 weeks. Now, if you can't, what that's going to end up in is you rushing the prep, which is going to lead to potentially losing muscle, turning up to stage looking flat, potentially not getting in condition. So asking yourself, can I get in shape in 20 weeks, is going to give you a picture of what you need to do next. So if the answer is yes, then great. You move into a maintenance and you hold your body weight. So you bring your calories down and you hold your body weight. Now, if the answer is no, what I'd recommend you do is move into a pre-prep diet. Now, a pre-prep diet is going to be 6 to 8 weeks long. It should not feel like prep. You should not be dragging your heels. You should not be burying yourself. It is simply there to start tightening up condition and get you to that point where, yeah, I'm 20 weeks out and I'm going to get in condition. Now, the important thing is that pre-prep diet doesn't turn into a 25, 30, 35-week prep because it's merged into your prep. So you actually need to give yourself time between when you've finished your pre-prep diet and when you start prep. So you're going to set your pre-prep diet, you're going to do 6 to 8 weeks. Once that's done, you've tightened yourself up, you're then going to bring calories back up, cardio down, and you're going to hold your body weight. So whether you are in a position to start prep or not, both ways end up the same in the sense that you hold your body weight before prep starts. Now, some considerations around if you're an assisted athlete is that the majority of prep is going to be spent in a super physiological range, simply meaning that you are going to be out of a natural range for the majority of prep or above a natural range. Now, that's when we see the negative side effects of using anabolics. And when we restore health markers is when we're in a natural range. So to set you up to make sure you're healthy, to make sure you're responsive, and understanding that you're going to spend a good amount of time above a natural range, you want to plan in a health phase prior to starting prep. And this hold phase will be tying in nicely with when you're going to run your health phase. So I'd run that health phase, bring yourself back down to a TRT dose, and be holding yourself there for 8 to 12 weeks. And it could be a good idea to pull some blood work and see where you're at, see where your baseline's at, so that you know where it's at before you move into prep. But that's if you're an assisted user. But whether you're assisted or natural, this situation applies. You either hold yourself at maintenance or you do a pre-prep diet and then hold yourself at maintenance. So that's step 1. Step 2 is setting your training split. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of starting their prep split when they start prep, which would kind of make sense, right? It's your prep split, you start it when you start prep. But the issue with that is when you start a new program, you're going to spend a good 6 to 8 weeks simply getting better at a skill. So there's going to be neurological adaptations where you're improving the movement you're doing. So you're going to see these really quick increases in weight and reps. And that isn't actually you at a position where you're providing a progressive stimulus. As I said, what that is you just getting better at the skill. So lifting heavy is a skill. So if you want to get good at lifting heavy things, you need to lift heavy things. So whether you've done that movement before or not, it's still going to apply. When you add it into your split, it may be in a different position to when you've done it in the past. You're going to be improving and getting better at that skill. So that can lead you into a false sense of security. That can be leading to you thinking that the volume setup is right, because your recovery and your ability to progress a program is feedback. It's feedback that the volume is in the right place and it's matching up with your recovery. But what it actually may be is you just getting better at that skill. And by the time you hit that 6 to 8 week mark in prep, if you started your split at the start of prep, you may crash and burn and find that that volume is way too high. So starting it in your holding phase is going to allow you to go through those neurological adaptations, get better at the skill, and then by the time you're hitting prep, you will be in a place where you've got a great picture of whether the volume is the right amount or not. It also serves the purpose of learning those skills outside of a diet, because when you're dieting, it's not the best time to add new movements in because the risk of injury is higher. So starting it before you actually start your prep is going to be super beneficial. Now, in terms of how you want to be setting that up, 8 to 16 sets per body part per week as a rough guide. There are individuals who may require more, may require less. But if we're looking at the amount of sets needed to grow muscle, it's in that 8 to 20 rep range. But you don't need anywhere as near as much volume to maintain muscle as you do to build it. So we can definitely go on the lower end. But you may be setting it higher if, for example, you have a weak body part. And that weak body part actually requires more volume to maintain that muscle. So 8 to 16 sets per body part per week as a rough guide to start. There's no intensifiers needed, because intensifiers, they're going to drive fatigue. And as I said, you're not going to need as much volume to maintain muscle as you are to build it. So no intensifiers needed, just straight sets, top sets, back of sets, however you approach it. And the priority is category specific and individual needs. So you need to make sure the training is set up specific to you and the category you're doing. So if you're men's physique, for example, it is absolutely pointless doing 2 leg days a week because you don't really see your legs. So what you're doing there is just wasting volume and probably building more fatigue than you need. So as an example, for men's physique, that may look like push-pull legs, rest, chest and back, delts and arms, rest, and you spreading the volume depending on how much volume you need per body part. So if, for example, your shoulders need more volume, your push may look like more of a shoulder dominant push session. Now, if it's classic physique as an example, but that classic physique athlete needs more volume to uphold their quads, then we could simply set it as push, legs, pull, rest, push, posterior, where we do a mix of back, hamstring, and then throw in 2 sets of quads and rest. So you need to make sure that that is set up specific to you. Now, step 3 is the hold phase, as we spoke about finishing that off season. But this phase is absolutely vital, and it's a phase that a lot of people miss. Because what they'll do is they'll just finish their off season and then just dive straight into prep. Now, prep shouldn't feel like a shock, okay? Prep should not feel like a shock. And if we're honest with off seasons, things can get a bit sloppy. You start missing cardio, your sleep timings are a bit off, your daily structure's a bit off. So this phase serves 2 purposes. Number 1, having your food at maintenance is going to give you confidence that with body weight stabilizing, the change you're going to make as you move into prep, it is actually going to move you into a deficit. So it serves that purpose. But number 2, and one of the things that's most overlooked, is just making sure you're absolutely solidifying everything you need to do before you move into that deficit. Because if you don't do that, then things are going to be a mess. And the first 6 to 8 weeks of prep are going to be you wasting time trying to get everything locked in when realistically you don't have time to waste in prep. So before the deficit, what you need to do, you need to get your training time locked in. What your training time being locked in is going to do is allow you to get your meal timing consistent. So the meal timings in prep when you're dieting are going to be super, super important. You're going to need to know when you're eating your pre and your post-workout meal, where you're structuring carbs, where you're having lower carbs during the day, and getting your training times locked in is going to allow you to get your meal timings locked in. You need to get your sleep and wake pattern set up. So keeping a consistent sleep and wake pattern. Sleep is going to get deranged in prep, and we need to do everything that we can to make sure that we're protecting sleep. Because if you're not sleeping, you're going to be losing body fat at a slower rate, you're going to be losing muscle at a higher rate, your performance is going to be off, you're going to be hungrier. So we need to protect that sleep with everything we can, and setting a consistent sleep and wake time is going to allow you to do that. You're going to get back in your baseline steps and cardio. So if you've got a bit sloppy on the cardio, on the steps, you're going to get that nice and consistent. That's only not going to get you into a good routine of doing it, but it is again going to match up with bringing your calories down to maintenance. It's going to get things stable so that if, for example, you add cardio, then it's actually giving you the benefit that is meant to be given. Whereas if things are all over the place, there's some days where your steps are low, some days where your cardio is high, some days low, then when you make that change, you're not going to know what it's going to do. Whereas if you have everything consistent, your nutrition, your steps, your cardio locked in, I know then that if I increase your cardio, decrease your food, it's going to move you into a deficit. And you need your calories at maintenance just to stabilize things. Now, if this feels hard, prep will bury you. So you need to get used to being in that routine, getting everything consistent, and everything should be nice and smooth. The only thing that should change as you move into prep is your calories going down and your output going up. You shouldn't have to completely overhaul your life. And you need to live like a bodybuilder before you become one. Stepping on stage is just a small part of it. So make sure you're dialed in before you start prep. And then step 4 is creating the deficit. So we want to move fast but controlled. So it's not a case of cutting your calories as low as you possibly can, do as much cardio as you possibly can, and then your performance going to shit. But we do want to move fast. So you've got energy, so you need to use it. And what I mean by that is when your body fat levels are higher, you've got energy available to you. Body fat is simply just food that's not been utilized. And you can tap into that by going into a bigger deficit. And because you have that energy on you, you've got enough energy to make sure that you've got enough energy to perform in the gym and uphold your training performance. But you can get away with going with a faster rate of loss. Going with a faster rate of loss at the start of prep is going to mean that you can slow things down towards the back end. Usually, if this part of the prep gets fucked up, the back end of the prep is rushed. And when you're leaner and you're having to push a higher rate of loss, you're going to be at a high risk of losing muscle. Whereas when you've got higher body fat levels, you're not going to be at as much of a risk of losing muscle. You're going to be in a good spot to push things quicker. So you want to be pushing things around a 1 to 1.5% body weight loss per week. So obviously in that whole phase, you brought your food down to a maintenance. So you know exactly what you need to do from there to get yourself losing body fat. So you want to be creating 20 to 30% deficit total, split across food, steps, and cardio. So wise to not pull all from food, because if you pull all from food, then that's going to be one of the key drivers of you performing in the gym. And if your food gets super low, then you're not going to have enough carbohydrates to fuel performance, enough to fuel recovery. So you want to be using a combination. Okay. So for example, if you're a 90 kilo male and your target rate of loss is 0.9 to 1.3, that may look like pulling 350 to 450 from food, adding 2 to 3K of steps, and then adding an additional 30 minutes of cardio per week. So that could be, let's say, for example, you're doing 3 cardio sessions at the moment of 20 minutes. That could be you going to 3 cardio sessions of 30 minutes, or you could simply just add on an additional cardio session. So early momentum, calm prep later. So as I said, slow starts, they're going to create panic down the line. You're going to be getting close to prep and you're going to be like, fuck, I'm not in shape. You're going to get panicked. If panic is high, that means stress levels are higher. When your stress levels are higher, it means that you're at a place where you're going to risk losing muscle and not losing body fat as efficiently. So getting things right at the start, getting early momentum will lead to a calm prep later and you not having to rush things. And the idea is that after the first 8 weeks of you pushing a faster rate of loss, you can slow things down and go for that 0.5 to 1% rate of loss and essentially just bring yourself in nice and steady. Low stress physique is going to be the best look. So if you get the start right, everything else becomes easier. So that is how I would set up a prep with my guys. There's no guessing, there's structure, so we know exactly what we're doing. Now, if you've got any questions off the back of that, or if you found that helpful, you're prepping this year, and you want someone to give you the guidance, the accountability, and the structure you need, feel free to drop me a message, BRM condition code. I will catch you there.